Welcome to The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News. Now, if you haven't heard of us before, we're UNN, and we are the official news channel for CARE, which stands for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. And we discuss the real news. So there's a lot of people out there giving news information here and there, but if you're really attuned to what's happening, there's probably something in your brain that's going, that's what they're saying, but something's off, right? If you feel that way, you have come to the right place. We have a newscast that is released through our online distribution platform every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you can get more information about all of that on our website, which is unitednetwork.earth. Now, what we do on this podcast is this is kind of a week in review podcast. So we take a look at the stories that we've covered over the last week, so the previous Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And this is a great way to catch up on stories you may have missed and or if you want to share UNN with other people. Because I know not everyone can do a membership or is interested in that kind of format. So you can send them a podcast episode that's kind of a week in review, or we do have our newscasts that are now being released a week after they air on our app. Okay, so there's a couple different ways that people can find out about us, even if they don't have a membership. And we cover different types of stories. We talk about local stories, and those are told through the eyes of our field messengers, which I'm going to tell you more about in just a bit. We talk about the new Earth, which is where our planet is going, because I know, you flip on the TV or radio or you're listening to another podcast, and it just sounds like gloom and doom. And that's not the reality of where we're actually going. So we want to get you excited about where our planet is heading because it is beautiful. And we talk about that in the new Earth. We also talk about regional stories that specifically impact you, the people. I don't care what governments have to say. They are all puppets and talking heads. But what is actually going to impact you as a citizen, as a person? Those are the stories we cover. And then we have something called our World Situation Report, and that is going to blow your mind if you've never heard Kim talk on the World Situation Report before, because we are not only talking about stuff happening on our planet, but we are talking about things happening in the multiverse. So the multiverse is the universe with all densities and dimensions and everything, the planes of existence. And if you haven't heard of all that before, well, stay tuned because we talk about it all on our newscast. And, if some of this stuff seems a little out there, that's fine, okay? There's a lot of information that's been hidden from us in the past. And that's what we really mean when we say the real news. What is really impacting us? What do we really need to know as humanity? Because this is a beautiful time to be alive and be on this planet. And we always encourage you guys, think critically. Ask questions. When we mention a date or a time or a location, especially when it comes to the World Situation Report, go look it up for yourself. Do as much digging as you can. Go down as many rabbit holes as you can, because just listening to people and us just assuming they were telling us the truth is how we got into this mess in the first place. Okay, so you guys ready to learn a little bit about what happened this week? Well, today, as I'm recording this, it is February 24th, 2024. Here is the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. So our newscasts always start off with our field messenger reports. And our field messengers are like citizen journalists. They don't necessarily have training in journalism, and that's not really what we're trying to accomplish either. What we want is for people to pick up their cell phones, which most of us have, right? And record what's really happening so we can get out of this. We're trying to break this narrative that mainstream media has of this is what you need to know, and this is from this perspective, because it's all slanted. So why can't we, the people, tell other people what's really happening in our neighborhoods? That's what a field messenger is. And so in each newscast, we have 2 to 3 reports from our field messengers. So pretty quickly, I'm going to go through the stories you may have missed as part of our field messengers. We have a story, and the first 2 were on Monday, okay? So we have a story from Maureen in Uganda, and she is highlighting Some businesswomen in Uganda, they have taken upon themselves. They actually sell firewood at their local market, and they sell it to help support their families. And she's shedding some light on some of the challenges they face. We also have a report on Monday from Africa, in Cameroon, Africa. Mohammed reports, and he is reporting from a prestigious bilingual high school who is celebrating the appointment of a new principal. And this is a big deal in their community. Again, people reporting on what's happening in their community. And this event was attended by the community and various dignitaries in the area, and he shows us what happened. Also, this would have been Wednesday then. Amanda in Australia gives us this beautiful report of the Tasmanian wilderness. So she was in Tasmania, and I think she's a hiker herself, but she was showing us these beautiful, picturesque views of places in Tasmania where you can go hiking. You see these beautiful, majestic looking mountains and these native flowers. And it's really one of those reports that you really just have to view, right? So you can check that one out. And then also in Australia, we have Rosemary giving us a little bit of background on birthing pools in that area. Now, I'm a mom. When I had my kids, I did not go to a birthing pool to give birth. However, many years ago, they would have done that. And some may argue, myself included, that maybe what they did a long time ago is what we should be doing today, or at least some sort of version of that, right? Being outside in nature has to be better than being cooped up in a hospital like I was. And so she shows us these birthing pools in the area that Indigenous women used, and they used it for their comfort, they used it for their safety, and again, just to be out there in nature. And it kind of gives you an idea of what life was like and how you can just look up and see nature and what God naturally created. And yeah, sounds like a better way to give birth than what I did. All right. And then on Friday, we've got two more reports. We have one from Bella and Wayne. So this is a super cute report from a grandfather and a granddaughter, and they live in the Tucson area. They went to the Tucson Gem Show. Now, I've never been, but I have heard, since this report came out, that is the largest, I believe, don't quote me on that, one of the largest gem shows in the U.S. And so they went to a couple of places. I believe they hold expos in hotels for this. And they were just showing us some of the things that they saw. And oh my goodness, so beautiful. This is another one of those reports you really need to watch. But they had these beautiful designs. Some of them were fossils that were in rocks that could be made into any kind of just things for your house, sinks for your house and tubs and just beautiful, beautiful things. And then also just the gems. And they were carved into different shapes and things. And so really beautiful report there. And then Emma in Spain has our last report. She went to a local market, which I would encourage all of us to do. If you haven't gone out and gone to a farmer's market or, just kind of been in your community where you can see what people nearby have created, it's so beautiful. So Emma was showing us in Spain some of the treasure of handmade goods that the local artisans had created. It's not just about the goods and services, but it is going out there, seeing other people in your community. We are so laser focused nowadays on going to a supermarket, and then we get in our car and we go here and we have our laundry list of things that we have to do. But sometimes if we just take a step back from that and really appreciate our communities for what they are and the people in those communities and support each other. Because trust me, the big box retailers and the corporations do not need our help. They are not necessarily on our side, as I'm sure many of you have come to realize. All right, let's talk about the new Earth and how fantastic our planet is, just how it is now. Yes, there's some things we need to clean up, but how us as humanity, we are changing right along with our planet. And these are the types of stories we talk about in the new Earth. So I usually do an interview, like a short 5-6 minute interview that's part of the new Earth, and then we have stories. So let me go through some of the interviews that we did. I do encourage you guys to listen to these. Again, 5-6 minutes. It doesn't take a lot of time. I talked with one of our experts, Cheyanne, and he's based out of the Netherlands. He runs the School of Frequency. And we have been talking about frequency and how it impacts our lives. And he did a little bit about frequency disruptors. So everything is frequency, which means if we have disruptors, that could impact everything, right? That could impact your person. And that's specifically what this segment is focusing on. Simple things you can do to reduce harmful frequency in your home. So we're not talking about having to go out and get Rife machines and things like that. Yes, you can do that. But what are some simple things you could do in your home to take away those harmful frequencies? And here's a little tip. A lot of this stuff you can do right before you go to bed to have a good night's sleep. So be sure to check out that interview. We did something different with this next interview I'm about to tell you about. I did a session with Michelle Ann Phillips. She is a ThetaHealing practitioner, and we did a ThetaHealing session. So we've talked about Theta before. This is our direct connection to God or source. Okay, so when we say that we're connecting to God, we hear from God, it is when you are in Theta mode, which is usually achieved through meditation, but sometimes, more advanced people who have practiced this can do this even when they're not just meditating. They just do this throughout the day. Well, that is being in Theta, and you can be in Theta and heal as well. So a practitioner, a Theta healing practitioner, would help guide someone to solving something. Maybe it's an ailment, maybe it's an issue they're dealing with in life, by reaching out into Theta and drawing that energy down and co-creating with Source to make whatever it is they're trying to do happen. Okay, so Michelle and I did a Theta healing session. These sessions are normally 45 minutes to an hour, which we don't have time to do that on the news. So I did a condensed version of it for the news. And then if you go on the United Network app, you'll have the full 45-minute session. And what we specifically focused on was removing resentment that humanity has from the deep state. And we went through and we talked about, why do we resent the deep state? And we brought up all of these emotions, and it's about clearing that and overcoming that. Because I promise you, holding on to that resentment is not going to help us get to the new earth. It's not going to allow us to experience what we want to experience and have the type of world we want to have. You cannot hold on to that resentment and that anger. Have they done horrible things to us? Yes, they have. But we, as light beings, have to let that go. Does it mean we have to be okay with it? No. But it cannot impact our movement forward, because we've got a lot of restoration to do. And so this is a great healing session for anyone that is struggling with that. And you can keep going back to it. Maybe you need more than one session to deal with this. I totally get that. So be sure to check that out. And then on Friday, I talked to Stephanie Ariel. Now, she is an aromatherapist. She's also an author. And we're doing this whole series with her about essential oils. If you have been watching the news recently, you've heard Kim talk about how we are introducing a line of products under New Earth with quality ingredients. And one of those things is going to be our own essential oil line. And Stephanie is part of that whole process. So I wanted to get her on the news to talk about essential oils, maybe clear up some misnomers, and get you guys excited. So this first segment is all about what are essential oils? So it's kind of like a beginner, right? What are essential oils? How are they made? And here's a fun fact. Did you know only 3,000 plants on this planet can actually produce essential oils? So there's millions that exist. Only 3,000 plants can actually produce it. So check that out. Okay, let's get to our New Earth stories. And these are designed to inspire you guys, get you thinking about different ways of doing things on our planet. And sometimes it's about revealing information that you may not have known to improve your health. And the first couple stories, actually, we're going to talk about fall into that category. So we're going to talk about the truth behind decaf coffee. Sounds like a good thing, right? We know having too much caffeine, it doesn't really agree with our body. So naturally, you may want to go with decaf coffee. In fact, 1/5 of all people, apparently this is from a study, prefer decaf coffee. So this impacts a big group of people, right? Well, organic decaf coffee adopts the Swiss water process, and that involves hot water, steam, and activated charcoal to help maintain that flavor and reduce the caffeine. So that's organic decaf. Then you have non-organic decaffeination, and that process uses chemicals because it's less expensive to produce. Everything's about money, money, money. And some of those chemicals are actually found in paint thinners. So do you really want to be drinking something made with non-organic decaf coffee? Do you really want that in your body? Stuff that could also be found in paint thinners. I, for one, do not. Right now, they claim that these chemicals are burnt off during the roasting process, yada, yada, yada. That is not true. It is still not as good for you. So if you are going to use decaf coffee, do a little bit of research, but organic decaf coffee is better for the reasons that I just mentioned. All right, next story. Let's talk about the benefits of celery juice. This has come up in conversation with Kim before. She has talked about how she likes celery juice. And when she does, I'm just like, oh God, could I actually drink celery juice? I like celery, but could I drink celery juice? I have done juicing in the past and I have mixed a whole bunch of stuff together, but could I actually grow to enjoy drinking celery juice? Well, after this story, maybe, because I have found out that there are a ton of benefits from this juice. It is taken from the fibrous stalks of the celery, okay? It is packed with antioxidants, vitamins K and C, potassium and folate. And it does some incredible things. It hydrates the skin. It eliminates toxins. It could even improve your complexion, right? So if you're struggling with some, little spots on your face and stuff like that, maybe try some celery juice. It's also great for your heart. It improves blood pressure and cholesterol levels. And if you do want to try this and you want to maximize the benefits, try using a cold press juicer, because that's going to preserve the salt clusters, and that's where all the goodness is in, okay? Also, wait 30 minutes after you drink the celery juice before eating or drinking anything else, okay? So give it a try. Let us know. Maybe comment on the app and on YouTube and Rumble and tell us what you guys think. All right, our last story as part of the New Earth is about something called a biohome. You guys heard that before? Biohome 3D. Now, this gets into housing. We know that there are issues with housing around the world. And I'm talking about affordable housing because we know the elites can afford whatever they want to afford. But for the rest of us, how do we own a home? How do we have something that we can call our own that isn't taking up all of our hard-earned money? Well, when it comes to creating affordable housing, one option is 3D printed homes, okay? And this is apparently on the rise. In late 2022, there was a collaboration between the University of Maine and a local nonprofit, and they created what is known as the Biohome 3D. This is the world's first fully recyclable house. And a lot of the contents that are used come from Maine. They're mills over there. It actually uses wood waste from those local mills in order to create the wood that is needed for these homes. And get this, a new home can be completed in just 2 days. These are modular homes, which are really easy to transport. You can put them together fairly easily if you know what you're doing. And they're also well insulated, so they can deal with any kind of weather conditions. It gets really cold in Maine. So if they've tested it in Maine and it's been great in the weather there, I'm assuming that also means that, in warmer climates, it would also work. And honestly, what we're talking about here is just providing sustainable solutions to this housing crisis, right? We've got homeless people on the streets and people that are just paying way too much money, and it just doesn't make sense. How can we help with the labor shortages, the long supply chains to get things done? And maybe printing a home in 2 days is the answer with sustainable products. Makes sense, right? A lot has been happening around the world in our regional stories. We cover a bunch of stories in each newscast, usually about 15 to 17 stories. So I looked at all the stories from Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I have picked out some themes that I saw. And those are what we're going to talk about today. So the first theme that I'm seeing this week are more government protests. I'm going to break some of these down for you. So in Croatia, citizens are demanding parliamentary elections be sped up because they're seeing government corruption. In Mexico, thousands of people rallied, and in fact, It says they dressed in symbolic pink. I'm not really sure what it's symbolic of, but they are demanding protection of their democratic processes before their June election, obviously coming up this summer. They fear their democracy is being threatened. You see some similarities, some common denominators here. In Albania, citizens say their current leaders are involved in corrupt activities, which has led to the disruption in parliamentary proceedings. And they're saying that this has stalled progress in a lot of different ways. They're trying to get deals done with migrants. They're also trying to integrate better with the Europeans. And all of this is being held up. So they're upset with their government as well. And then there was another protest going on, not quite on the government side, but I still thought it was interesting. So I'm going to throw it in here. And that is there were some protests at the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And this is related to their labor union. They represent about 400 workers, and they are raising concerns because, I don't know if you know this, but the Summer Olympics coming up this year in 2024, those Olympics are going to be held in Paris. And so obviously people are going to want to go see the Eiffel Tower, right? It's a staple when you go to Paris. And so the workers there are raising concerns because they don't think, given their current resources, that they can maintain the tower's operations. I mean, just think about millions and whatever of people coming to your area. They're basically saying, listen, we're struggling as is. We're going to have this influx of people, and we don't know if the tower can take it, and we don't know if our staff can take it. And so they are protesting in advance, saying, you better give us more supplies, probably better wages, more people, in order to accomplish this summer. So that's the first group of stories for government protests. Now let's talk a little bit about our schools and our children, because that's another theme that I saw this week. Germany is being criticized for having a high dropout rate. That's a combination of high and dropout. It's dry. Now, what they're saying is a gap among students with migration backgrounds. Those students are lacking a high school diploma. They also say for people that lack a knowledge of the German language, those people are missing out as well. And as a result, there's a high dropout rate. So we reported on that. Also, Sudan is facing an educational crisis due to ongoing conflicts in their area. They have war and famine, some weather issues as well. And there is a number of out-of-school children. And that number has increased, get this number, this is crazy, from 3 million to 19 million. And when we look at that 19 million number, that is 47% of their nation's population. Those are the number of children that are out of school right now due to all of these issues in the area. Obviously, that's a big concern. Now, we've got a couple of stories here on the western half of the world, here in the United States, where I'm at. We're talking first about college SAT, ACT requirements. So these are standardized tests that students in the U.S. have to take in order to apply for universities. Now, COVID, I just learned this because obviously I haven't been in school for a while. I just learned that during the pandemic, some universities made that process optional. So you didn't necessarily have to take an SAT or an ACT, probably because the testing would have been more difficult if everyone's wearing masks and maybe it wasn't safe. So therefore, it was optional. Well, now there are more and more universities, and this is what the story is about, saying, we may make this optional moving forward. Okay, they're really starting to question standardized tests. Does that equal college success? And more importantly, who cares about college success? Does this equal success in life, right? Now, I have to interject here. So this is Sunny's personal view. This wasn't reported on in the article. But I'm kind of questioning if this is really their motive, right? They can't come out and say, listen, we're not getting as much money from the government because the government is broke. So, hey, let's reduce the considerations or, the test scores, basically. Let's not consider just ACT, SAT test scores for people to get into college. Let's increase the amount of people that come to college, and therefore we'll make more money. Because we know that is the bottom line with colleges and universities, especially here in the United States, is how much money they are making. And they are not getting money from the government because the government is broke. Okay, so again, that's my own little take on that. That was not part of the article. But a lot of times these articles, they are kind of making the universities out to be, oh, we're having this epiphany. Do standardized tests really equal college success? How many times have you thought that? We've been thinking this for a very long time. So don't tell me that this is just now being brought up, right? This is about money. And something else to go along with that, there's another study. In the US, 43% of recent grads are not fully using their degrees in the workforce. So again, this goes back to, why are we doing things this way? Maybe what we need to do is let these institutions either change on their own or slowly go away, because we know the education system needs to be changed. We have known for a long time that students learn differently. So having a standardized test, that creates a standard. It's in the name, guys. Every human being is different. So that certainly is not a good indication of how well someone is going to perform in college or in life. And then there is another study that I want to tell you guys about. This is also based in the US, and it says 43% of recent grads are not fully using their degrees in the workforce. So again, why are we doing this? Why are we saying that you have to have a college degree to do anything in life? And why are we assuming a dollar amount of what you're able to make based on you going to college or not? Does that seem right to you? It seems like things are set up that way. Like it's set up for the colleges to make all of this money, because if you don't pick one of those colleges, then you're not going to make any money in life, right? This is a system. And another thing that this study said, which I completely disagree with, the study claims graduates with college degrees still do better off financially. All right, let's think about this. Are you talking about financially as a whole, or are you talking about them earning a larger paycheck from their employer? Because it probably is true that they are going to earn a larger paycheck from their employer, but are we considering all the other factors, such as student loans? If they have to pay back hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans, are they really doing better financially? Yeah, I don't think so. All right, and our last topic is about health. I've got a few stories I want to share with you guys. So there is a massive doctor strike that was going on this week in South Korea. 1,600 trainee doctors from major hospitals literally walked off the job. And they're walking off because the government is increasing the amount of students that are allowed to go to medical school. So the admissions process, they're basically accepting more people. And the doctors are saying this increase, for whatever reason they're doing it, I'm sure we can all come up with a million reasons, is harming the quality of healthcare. So they're dealing with that in South Korea. Also, UK patients, so this is in United Kingdom, in Britain. They have the NHS, the National Health System in Britain, and they are having a ton of issues over there. Okay, and this is impacting initial treatments as well as ongoing care. And they're also saying that there is a lack of proper oversight for people who don't make it on these official waiting lists. Not sure how you get on those lists, but if you're not on one of those lists, they're saying people are basically, falling through the cracks. So they are raising concerns about people that are going what they're calling unmonitored. So some issues, obviously, in the UK. And then we have a couple of stories. So in Australia, there are asbestos concerns. There are schools, multiple schools, and now multiple public sites that are testing positive for hazardous substances, including asbestos. Okay, this is found in residential constructions, which is really kind of confusing because how long have we known that asbestos is not good for you and they're still using it in residential constructions? Really? They're also finding this in hospitals, and they say they've created a special task force to help expedite the cleanup and address any safety concerns. Also, here in the U.S., we've got an issue with something called chlormequat. This is a chemical used in agriculture, and based on some recent tests, it has been found in 92% of common oat-based products here in the United States. And this is a huge increase. In 2017, they did similar tests, and we had 69% in 2017. Now, 2024, we've got 92%. And of course, people want to know why. And they are attributing this to regulatory changes coming in from food imports. In Bangladesh, there is widespread use of glyphosate. Glyphosate is Roundup. You guys have heard stories about Roundup. This is a weed killer. It's used in gardens and things like that. It has been banned in 33 countries. It is an herbicide that lingers in the environment, okay? It impacts the soil. It impacts the water. It harms the local biodiversity of the area. And here's the really sad thing. In Bangladesh, the authorities say they understand the risks, and they're not even fighting the fact that glyphosate is a horrible herbicide. But they're saying there's no cost-effective replacements. So this is a really sad thing, right? That needs to be resolved. And now it's time for highlights from the World Situation Report with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. Ooh-wee, guys, this was a crazy week. A lot of stuff to talk about. If you recall, on our last podcast on Friday, Kim was not on the news, but she gave us a statement basically to read, to update us on some of the things that were happening. So let's pick it up from there. On Monday, because I kind of need to go in sequential order here, because some of this is based on what happened the previous news day. So on Monday, Kim talked a lot about things that are naturally happening that God or Source is doing right now, that is reweaving and changing the fabric of reality. I know a lot of times, and we'll get into that too, the deep state is doing this, and, that's just human stuff. But on the other hand, there's incredible things happening on this planet right now that God or Source is doing that is for the betterment of humanity. And that's the first part we're going to talk about, because this is the uplifting, encouraging part for the World Situation Report. The frustrating thing sometimes is that some of these changes happen very fast. And that's the bulk of what we're going to talk about today when we talk about the reweaving of the fabric of reality. Some of these changes are happening super fast, and as a result, some people may be feeling sick. So if you're very sensitive to changes like this, I know there was a really big shift that happened the Friday before. So we're talking about the previous Monday and then that previous Friday. And actually, when anything like this happens, the deep state gets really excited and they view it as something good for them. It's never good for them. We have talked about this over and over again. We are now in a light age. So good things are coming. We were in a dark age, and that's when a lot of nasty stuff was going on. And the deep state is holding on to that, thinking that we're still in a dark age, but we're not. So these same things and these rituals and practices and crazy things that they've been doing, they keep doing them over and over again, expecting a different result. But they're going to lose every single time. And in some of the things that have been happening over last weekend and then into this week, the deep state thought it was an opportunity for them to take back control. So their system, if you're new here, their system was called Omega, okay? And it was run by really high beings high up. What we consider the deep state never had their hands directly on Omega, okay? But that was their system. That's the dark system. And then you have Alpha. For those of you who, go to church or, read different kind of historical transcripts and things like that, you may have heard that God is the Alpha and Omega. This is what we're talking about. These are quantum systems. And so the Alpha has taken over. The Omega doesn't even exist anymore. But again, when these kind of things happen, the deep state thinks, oh, we're going to get our system back. So here is Kim talking about how reality is changing. This is a very good thing for humanity and where we're going.
Universal wide, there is a reweaving of the fabric of reality, which means that there's no longer a duality. And this has been going on for a while, but the events that have taken place in the last few days were very fast, very rapid. And because there were some covenants and some agreements in place in the past, even during a light age, there would always be a certain amount of darkness that would exist. And in order to prevent that darkness from dissipating completely, there were 4 main threshold points that would be hit. And each one would trigger what we call a dead man switch. Now, some of these things were in place between source and anti-source. Some of these things were put in place by the others that wanted to see the darkness recreate itself. And none of them have been pleasant, but the one that started on Friday has been the worst. This one here triggered a sequence of events throughout the world in different locations, as we mentioned on Friday's news, that could have allowed for, I would say, a certain amount of darkness to continue to exist. Now, in the eyes of the secret space program operatives, and in the eyes of the Rothschild family, Ital, the Order of the Dragon, they felt that this was their opportunity for Omega to recreate itself and for Omega to overshadow Alpha again. It wasn't set up for that purpose. In part, it would have allowed a portion of it to exist, I would say. And then, moreover, enough darkness so that they could continue to exist in this world and do the things that they do with power behind it. So there was a lot of cleanup that had to happen in rapid succession on Friday, which is why I wasn't on the news, in order to prevent that from happening here on Earth. Additionally, universe-wide, we are seeing the fabric of reality being reweaved. So that means we're now going to be in a source light multiverse, no longer utilizing any portion of darkness to weave the fabric of reality. And that is on every single plane of existence and every density of existence. So that obviously starts where it all begins with, for example, your essence. Your essence is the blood of your soul. For lack of a better term, as in the blood is in your human vessel and in your body. And the reweaving of the essence of the soul in a light universe is what started taking place over the last, I would say, 7 days, but it started to really hit the third density starting Friday, Saturday. By yesterday, it's probably Sunday, midday my time, early morning in Australia time, is when the quantum fields began to shift for us as beings here on Earth. So it has already shifted throughout most of the multiverse, but now we're into our density, which is the third density. Eventually, it'll clear the first and the second, and then hopefully we'll be done. But it's every single plane of existence. So the essence is being reweaved in a different way. And for some people that are super sensitive, that could have felt very uncomfortable to you. Also, the next plane down, which is your etherical plane, is also being rewoven. So every few hours, we're getting a reweaving of every single, the astral plane in your person is also being rewoven. Yes, the mental plane, your emotional plane is being rewoven. That the emotional plane really hit a peak last night, my time, probably around 8 o'clock at night, 7 or 8 o'clock. And that stirred up a lot for some, especially some that had some really dark emotional. They were clinging onto those the dark matter that existed in the emotional plane. And it kind of, if we thought last week was rough with people kind of losing it, this week, last night into this morning, it's gotten worse and worse and worse. So we're now hitting, as of now, at the time of this recording, which is about 11 o'clock Mountain time, what we're seeing is a reweaving of the physical plane and your DNA. So your entire DNA sequencing is changing to not reflect a source, anti-source physical being. So some people are experiencing physical ailments right now or feeling like you're going to get the flu. That's another common one. You feel like you've got a cold or a flu, or you're feeling sick this weekend, extremely drained as we went through the energetic field about 24, 48 hours ago. And the more sensitive you are, the more you're going to feel it, unfortunately. It is a positive process for us in the long run and a little bit uncomfortable in the short run for all of us. So we are going quantum field by quantum field now throughout the person. The other thing that's changing as well is the way that matter is being created. And to put it into a term that maybe you can understand, you've probably seen a Tesla triangle in motion, in a flow of energy in motion, and a flow of creation in motion on the internet. You can find them in video form, even on YouTube and different channels. So when, for example, a being or matter is being created, a physical vessel is being created, you'll start out with one cell. And then that one cell divides to two, and the two divide then into four, the four then into eight, and then the eight then into 16, which 6 plus 1 is 7. And then you keep going around the triangle. But as you look at the center or the vortex of that triangle, those cells actually disappear for one brief zeptosecond and then return into reality and go on to the division. This is the point where in the past, the sequencing would go from source to anti-source and then back into reality. So you were having both in every cell in your body. So that formula now is changing because it's a source thing. There's no anti-source or antimatter or anti-creation involved in the creation of every quantum field that exists within your body. I know this sounds very, very confusing, and I'm not trying to confuse you. I'm letting you know what's happening so that you know how to navigate. It should be complete within the next 4 to 5 hours from the time of this recording. But if you're feeling really woozy, a little lightheaded, a little off today, energy drains, flus, colds that seem to appear and spontaneously disappear, these are all physical symptoms of this quantum field change.
So not only were we experiencing, at least some of us, maybe experiencing some not so great symptoms. So if you felt sick over the last handful of days, that could have been a result of what's going on with changing the fabric of reality, right? But the deep state is also aware that something has changed, and they're not too happy about it. So the last time we talked about the deep state, we reported that there were 15 SSP, which stands for Secret Space Force operatives, that were working in conjunction with the Rothschilds, or the Rotten Children, as Kim likes to call them. And those 15 operatives were actually released for being quote unquote incompetent, which, as you can imagine, to tell operatives that they are incompetent is going to mess with their ego a little bit, okay? They were not happy about that at all. So they were released. So they don't fall under the Order of the Dragon. They're no longer technically working for the Rothschilds, but they still have egos bigger than this planet, okay? And the reason they were released as being incompetent is the Order of the Dragon, the Rothschilds, claim that Kim is a hacker. That she is doing all of this because she is hacking the system, apparently hacking the alpha system, and she's just a really good hacker. Okay, well, what they don't understand is this has always been Kim's system, okay? And she is not hacking anything. It operates based on her essence and other things, but it is connected directly to her. So she's not hacking anything. It's her system. Regardless, the operatives were let go, and they're quite upset because they were promised big, big things from the Rothschild family, right? They were going to own things and be, I don't know, kings of different areas or have these really important titles, because apparently that's what you do when you can't pay people. You just promise them this elaborate title that you probably just made up, And it means nothing, okay? But they were promised all of this, but when you get let go, then you don't get all those benefits. So these are the operatives run the operations, guys. The Rothschilds don't run anything, okay? They just tell people what to do. So for these 15 SSP operatives, there essentially was a ringleader of the 15. And this person, a he, had about 50 other men in his downline. Okay, so he was responsible for 50 other people. They're all part of the SSP, but obviously various levels. Now, we had a little bit of hope. This was on Monday again. We had a little bit of hope because these 50 people were finally invited to a meeting. This was the first time ever this had happened. And this is basically a meeting to get the scoop. And they found out new information. For example, they found out that Kim is not a hacker. They were getting information from the archivists, which is a history of real information on this planet. As agreements get filed, they get filed with the archivist. So if you have access to an archivist, you can go back and see exactly who she is, whatever information you need to know. But in this case, it was about Kim. Is she a hacker? No, she's not a hacker. Oh, the alpha system is really Kim's. So they discovered this. And that's basically where we left that group on Monday. We were hopeful that they would take the information and make smart choices. Now, a couple other things that Kim mentioned on Monday that I want to update you guys on. We talked before about the silent circle. And in the last podcast episode, we talked about how the silent circle and the anti-silent circle basically came up with a deal. And this was through their system. They use something called markers. If you've ever seen the movie John Wick, you have seen people exchange markers. This is basically saying, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and if I don't do it, then you have permission to kill me. And they exchanged, the anti-silent circle exchanged markers with the silent circle, saying, because the anti-silent circle wanted to do all this deep state nefarious stuff and, thought that they were going to regain control. And the other side, the positive, if you will, silent circle, said, okay, if you're going to keep doing this, give us a marker. And if XYZ doesn't happen, then you're gone. So just to quickly update you on that situation, the anti-silent circle did not follow through with their markers, meaning they did not do what they said they were going to do. So I know this sounds brutal, but the silent circle took out the heads of the anti-silent circle. And all their properties and their businesses and everything that they own now become part of the silent circle. So they're pretty busy right now restructuring. But that is a huge deal. Whole families, I'm not sure about like mother, child, all that, but the heads that were running these families, that's what they call themselves, families, they were taken out. Okay? And that is a really big deal, because the silent circle has said before that they want to move forward with Kim. Another quick update. And again, if you want the details on this, listen to the newscast when it comes out a week later, or of course you can become a member and, get the full report right when it's released. But Cheyanne Mountain. So this is a big location. There was a huge base there. Oh boy. So Kim explains it much better on the news, and we don't have time to go into all of this now. But essentially, they were trying to hack into the alpha system. And as I mentioned before, in doing that, since the alpha system is literally tied to Kim and Kim's essence, they started draining some of Kim's essence. So they themselves were trying to hack into a system that Kim created that is partially reliant on her essence. And that was not cool with Kim. I mean, how would you guys feel if someone was draining your essence, which is the life force of your body? So if you drain too much essence, you die, okay? Whether or not they knew that they were doing this or not, it's unclear. But when someone does something like that, you have to remove the threat. And that's exactly what Kim did. So even though Cheyanne Mountain is a huge location, if you follow Q and all their craziness over there, please don't follow Q, by the way. You have heard Cheyanne Mountain mentioned many times, and we've also talked about it on the news. Kim literally torched the place. Not only did she torch the place, but she also allowed somehow, I don't know how she does this, but she allowed a video feed so all the other bases and locations could see what she was doing. And so obviously that is a warning, okay, off the bow, not to do stuff like this. So Cheyanne Mountain is no longer picking up the phone. All right, on Wednesday, that was just Monday, guys. Okay, Wednesday is going to be pretty short because Kim actually wasn't on the news based on things that happened after everything on Monday. Okay, so there was no world situation report. I did release a statement from Kim at the end of the news, so I'm going to go ahead and read that to you. And then we're going to move on to Friday, because she went through and in greater detail explained what I'm about to tell you. So here was the statement on Wednesday. The United States is under attack by 17 of its own military bases. The U.S. military are planning terrorist-like events in the following cities: Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Phoenix, New York, Philadelphia, and Seattle. At the same time, they are using energy weapons directed at Kim in hopes of trying to stop her and other people to counter these actions on U.S. soil. This is not the time to panic. We are not helpless. We need everyone to hold the light and co-create with Source to allow for the best possible outcome for humanity. We got this. Okay, so that's what I said on Wednesday. Now, for those of you that may be following the Q clock, maybe just because it's interesting and you need a laugh for the day, you may have noticed that those cities that I mentioned were mentioned on the Q Countdown website. Okay, so they said they're telling you exactly what they're doing because that's their MO. That's what they do. They tell you they're going to do all this horrible stuff to you, and then they do it, and they say, oh, we told them they were going to do it, so, no karma for us. They agreed to do it. So they were planning to go to those cities, and that was listed on the Q clock. So for those of you who are following Q or think Q is somehow going to come save the day, please stop. They're literally telling you that they are going to kill you. So don't worry about the website. I don't even recommend going to the website. Don't have anything to do with Q. Q is not good. Okay, then on Friday, so this is just yesterday, Kim was back on the news and she had an opportunity to kind of explain some of this. Because sometimes when Kim gives a statement like this, she's too busy. Like, I don't have a chance to really ask questions and stuff. She literally gives a statement. We put it out on the news. And then my hope is the next time we have a newscast, we can go back over and discuss some of this stuff to really clear the air on what exactly is going on. That's exactly what happened on Friday. Okay, so remember those 50 operatives? They were in the downline of the SSP. They were clued in on the meeting. Well, as I mentioned before, we were hoping that they would take the information from the archivist and make good life choices. As it turns out, those people chose poorly. So apparently they got together and they had big plans to somehow get a bunch of money and go conquer the world on their own. Because you have to understand, ego is everything for these people. This is not about humanity. It's not about helping people. It's that they were promised XYZ and they are going to carry this out until hell freezes over. And a lot of them are fine with going to hell to help with this process. They don't care. They don't care who helps. Yeah, bring up some, lower astral beings to help. That's exactly what they want. In fact, some of these operatives were actually in Durango, and Kim does tell the story of how she ran into some of these people, and they were trying to test the waters with her and try to impact her more on a quantum level and, try to throw some negative energies at her. And she basically gave them the look of death in person. And apparently they were pretty impressed that she was able to go to ball with them, okay, and hold her own and protect herself. So the clip that I want to play, though, is about these operations. So all of those cities that I mentioned in that statement, Kim does break down what was happening there and why they were going to those different places. Basically, they were trying to carry out these attacks in the U.S. to get money. Because you can't really do anything. If you can't pay people in their world, you can't do anything, okay? And this whole thing is about people being broke, right? The SSP is broke. The governments are broke. No one can give anyone any money. So it's all about how do we get money. When we were in a dark cycle, the money came from the dark side. The money came from the alpha system, but it was carried out through a credit system in the omega system, okay, the dark side of the system. And so when that happened, they would get money for doing bad things because that helped the lower astral beings that were running the show. They like all that dark essence and nasty stuff that happens when you torture and kill innocent people. That's the reality of our world, guys. Okay. So those people are living under still the notion that if they do bad things, it's going to please these lower astral beings that don't even exist anymore. And they're going to get a bunch of money to do whatever, run the world. Okay. So now let's listen to Kim explain these different locations they were at and what they were trying to do.
This false flag attack would have then created a situation where they believed that they could file an agreement for global martial law, and that they would then get money for this. Now, that hasn't worked in years. I mean, years. So, okay, fine. Now, what's the plan? Now, not all technology that the secret space program utilized, predominantly all, I should say, all of the technology was provided by others over millions of years that had come and gone from here, and not all of them were our friends. I'd say none of them were our friends, because the organic systems don't need technologies to do these things. Well, there is a way that you can use plasma, negatively charged plasma, to create an explosion. I'll just give it to you not in full quantum physics terms, and we don't want to help our non-friends out there either. So we'll just leave it at that. So, but this particular type of charged plasma was provided thousands of years ago. So it's not new. But it's also the reason why they built specific buildings where they built them, so that at any time they could implode these buildings and cause major trauma on this planet. So if you thought 9/11 was bad, this was going to be even worse. So the following locations were the targets. We have the Times Mirror Square in Los Angeles, the Sears Tower in Chicago, the JP Morgan Chase Tower in Houston, Texas, the Chase Tower in Phoenix, Arizona, Rockefeller Plaza in New York, the Empire State Building in New York, the Comcast Technology Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the Bank of New York Mellon Tower in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the Space Needle in Seattle, the Salesforce Tower in San Francisco, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building in Tokyo, Japan, and the U.S. Bank Tower in Los Angeles. Now, the detonator for all these 12 sites, and previously there would have been more, they just didn't have the facilities to do that, and was underneath Southern Command, also known as SOCOM for short, in Miami. So they had people there in Miami with the cooperation of Southern Command of the United States. And they also had the token Iranians who were going to take the fall, all ready to go. And these were supposed to be detonated on Wednesday evening.
Okay.
You know, I hope no one ever tells me ever again that we have military people that are white hats protecting this country. Because I can tell you right now, if I was in the military and I was a general in the military and I heard, even if I was a good guy and I heard this was going to happen, I would have given up my stars. I would have given up everything to stop a fabricated terrorist attack on the United States. And if that meant none of my friends talked to me, and if that meant I didn't exist, at least I would have known that I would have saved millions of Americans. So I hope no one, let there be no mistake. Either A, you're too afraid, which scares me even more. You mean to tell me you're a general in the military and you're too afraid to save American lives that you took a pledge and an oath to?
Yeah.
So if you're a white hat, quote unquote, and you're in the military, shame on you. Maybe you need to go get another job. I don't know. Walmart greeter. something like that. Because this, if you don't have the, how do I say this in a nice way, courage and strength to go against your peers in the protection of American people, then you need to go get another job. Now, I do know that there are deep state folks that were involved in this, orchestrating this entire event, and there's no way they didn't hear about it. So let us not lie to each other here for a minute and tell me who you are and who you are not, because I can clearly see who you are. You had to be aware of this. So needless to say, none of these buildings went down on Wednesday night as proposed. The Q Clock is still reporting currently at this moment about Japan and Los Angeles. That's never going to happen. And they're still trying to find money somewhere. So what happened the next day? So the next day, which was yesterday, feels like it was last year, basically in a nutshell, at the 5 a.m. meeting, they pretty much all agreed when there was no plan, because there was no plan to go forward at this point, and there were a lot less people at that meeting than they were at the day before, because some of them were in these locations when that was taken care of. Some of them were also in another location. It's called the Tesla Tower, and it's in Texas. You can look it up. It's a really weird looking tower in the middle of nowhere. And they didn't obviously make it to the meeting the next day. So they were several people at that meeting. So maybe out of the 50, now we're down to about 25-ish, 25 to 28 people. And most of them at that point started questioning their sanity, because there's nothing left.
Yeah, I guess so.
So even the people that were still diehard on getting this job done, so to speak, by yesterday afternoon, or yesterday, I'd say midday my time, they pretty much all walked away except for 5 people. Now, as of this morning, out of the 5 people, the last one walked away. So we had 4. Now we're down to 4. 4 people still wanting to make the Rothschilds' dream come true.
Oh boy. So fewer and fewer SSP members are staying alive or as part of this plan or going along with the plan. So that's a good thing. Another update that Kim gave us was about the headlines that I'm sure you saw about disruptions with AT&T, T-Mobile, and I think a few other services. They were saying their cell phone was down. They were getting an SOS message. People in various families, different locations around the U.S. I believe this was just a U.S. event. And this is part of that small little team of people that Kim just mentioned trying to do bad stuff, okay? Trying to take over the world again. And this was an attempt by them to hack and actually, they didn't even have to hack, okay? We think about hackers getting into AT&T and T-Mobile and places like that. These companies leave the door wide open for them, okay? So there's really not a lot of hacking going on, but this was their way of saying, hey, look at us. We can take down, and I'm using air quotes when I say that, we can take down telecommunications. We can take down worldwide internet. Look at us go. And I don't know if you saw some of the first reports that said millions of people impacted. And I guess some of these news stations actually release this before anything actually happens. So that just shows you how horrible our news is and how slanted it is and how agenda focused it is. Because they're reporting on stuff before it actually happens. It's amazing how they can do that. So this was an attempt by this very small group of people to say, look at us, look at us. And I love on the news, Kim said it's like Swiss cheese. Like they wanted this big thing, but it had so many holes in it. It was like Swiss cheese. Like you're going to take down everything, but really only affected a certain group of people. And then things were back up and running pretty quickly. So yay, small group of SSP people that really didn't do much. Now, if you're following us on Telegram, then you would know that later on yesterday, in the afternoon after the news went out, Kim gave us another update and said that none of those remaining 4 SSP operatives were left. None of them walked away. 4 returned to source or God. okay, which means they are eliminated. Their soul goes back to Source, and Source figures it out and determines what's going to happen to them next. And as far as how that all unfolded, I do not know. So tune in for Monday. Hopefully Kim will be on the news to give us a breakdown. So thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. We really appreciate you guys. If you want the full scoop, I recommend you go to our website at unitednetwork.earth and become a member. It's not a lot of money. We give you a ton of information I promise you won't find anywhere else. But hey, if that is not your thing, keep in mind, a week after the news comes out, you can actually get the full newscast on YouTube and Rumble, unless they censor us and take it down, which obviously we can't control. But we want you to have access to all this content. So whether you're watching us on YouTube and Rumble, we appreciate that. If you are a member, we appreciate you as well. And if you are a member, you can also join our United chat that is part of our app, and there's also a desktop version. And I'm on there a lot, chatting with you guys and trying to answer as many questions as I can. You can also follow us on social media. We have a social media team that creates clips of different sound bites and things from our newscasts and puts it out there for you guys to share. So follow us and help us spread the word. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.